What are the only thing powerful enough to blow up a $2 billion deal, topple a secret boardroom coup, and crack a Titan's armor isn't a rival CO, but a crayon drawing taped to family fridge? The Chicago skyline blaze, a jagged cathedral of ambition piercing the starless night. On the 47th floor of Emerson Tech's glass fortress, Mark Emerson stood alone, his silhouette ablaze against the city's electric pulse. At 42, he was a titan, a tech emperor who'd forged an empire from a single line of code scratched in a college dorm's flickering light. His name was currency, traded in boardrooms, splashed across Forbes, and whispered in Silicon Valley shadows. But tonight, at 11:58 p.m., as he stared into the window's dark mirror, his reflection was a ghost, eyes sunken, chasing a phantom he could no longer name. His phone buzzed, a text from Anna, the babysitter for his 6-year-old daughter, Zoe. Zoe's asleep. Dinner's in the fridge. She drew something today. It's urgent. Please look. Mark's brow furrowed, a flicker of unease cutting through his exhaustion. Zoe's drawings were her language. Crayon storms of unicorns, rainbows, childish dreams. He typed a clipped thanks, I'll check, and turned back to his laptop, where a $2 billion Singapore deal pulsed in endless spreadsheets, a labyrinth of numbers that held his legacy. Every late night, every missed bedtime, was a sacrifice for Zoe's future. Or so he swore to himself. The penthouse was a crypt when Mark slipped in at 2:14 a.m., his Italian loafers silent on the cold marble. Zoe's door stood ajar, her nightlight casting a golden glow over her sleeping form. Curls splayed across the pillow like a halo. He paused, guilt coiling in his chest like a snake, then drifted to the kitchen. Beside a foil-covered plate, pinned under a magnet on the fridge, was Zoe's drawing. He expected whimsy. Instead, it was a wound. A stick figure Zoe, pigtails unmistakable, stood beside an empty chair, tall, angular, a twin of his office throne. In shaky, childish scrawl, Daddy always working. I sit with chair. Chair doesn't talk like Daddy. The words sliced like a blade. Blue crayon drenched the chair, pressed so hard it tore the paper's edge. Mark sank onto a bar stool, the drawing trembling in his hands. When had Zoe been in his office? Had she sat there, alone, whispering to a chair, his mind churned and his text echoing? It's urgent. That ellipsis was a warning. What was she hiding? By 5 a.m., Mark was back in his office, the drawing stashed in his briefcase like contraband. His COO, Victor Lang, stormed in at 6:15, all shark grins and Taylor menace. Singapore's on at noon, he said, tossing a tablet onto Mark's desk with a thud. They're jittery. You gonna show up, or are you off playing daddy daycare? Mark's jaw clenched. Victor, his right hand since the startup's gritty days, was a deal-closing predator but wielded loyalty like a switchblade. I'm here, Mark snapped, voice like steel. What's their counteroffer? As Victor rattled off figures, Mark's eyes flicked to his briefcase. Zoe's drawing was a splinter in his soul, sharp and unyielding. He needed answers. At 9:45, he called Anna, catching her as she walked Zoe to school. That drawing, he said, voice tight. What's going on? Is Zoe okay? Anna's pause was a chasm. She's been drawing you a lot, she said finally. Or your office. Last week, she asked if your office is nicer than home. Yesterday, she said, Daddy's chair listens better than he does. I didn't know how to tell you. Mark's throat closed. She said that? Why didn't you say something sooner? You're never around, Anna said, soft but cutting. I don't want to pile on. The call ended, but Anna's words festered like an open wound. Mark pulled a drawing from his briefcase, its blue chair a silent accusation. He pictured Zoe in his office, small and alone, waiting for a father too buried in work to see her. Was this who he'd become? The question was a knife, twisting deeper with every heartbeat. That evening, Mark canceled a client dinner and drove to his neighbor Ruby's brownstone. Ruby, a 78-year-old retired art teacher, had a warmth that pierced even Mark's iron walls. Her living room, cluttered with sketches and scented with lavender and old books, felt like a sanctuary. She'd been a confidant to Mark's late wife, Claire, and a grandmother to Zoe. He slid the drawing across her coffee table. Anna's worried. I don't get it. Is this serious? Ruby adjusted her glasses, studying the paper with a painter's eye. Her face softened, but her eyes held a quiet grief. Children's art is their truth, she said. Blue is loneliness, distance. This chair, it's you, Mark, or the void you leave behind. Zoe's saying she's alone. Mark bristled, defensive. She's not alone. She has Anna, school, everything a kid could want. I'm doing this for her. Ruby's gaze was a blade, gentle but unyielding. Are you? My son, Daniel, used to beg for 5 more minutes on our Zoom calls. I was always too busy, teaching, grading, living. Then he was gone. Heart attack at 34. I give my soul for those minutes now. Her voice cracked, and Mark looked away. Her paint a mirror to his own over Claire, lost 2 years ago to a car accident that still haunted his dreams. Kids don't wait, Ruby said. You can't schedule love. Zoe's not asking for your empire. She's asking for you. Mark drove home, Ruby's words a tempest in his skull. Claire had been Zoe's anchor, bedtime stories, braided hair, whispered secrets. Since her death, Mark had drowned his grief in work, believing it was enough. But Zoe's drawing screamed he was wrong. Was he failing his daughter? The question was a fire, burning through his defenses. The next week, Mark tried to bridge the gap. He carved out 6 to 8 p.m. for Zoe, burning spaghetti but earning her giggles, stumbling through spelling homework, showing up to her ballet recital. Her joy was a lifeline, filling a void he hadn't known existed. But the Singapore deal was a hydra, its demands growing with every email. Victor was relentless. You're slipping, he said one morning, leaning into Mark's office like a predator. The board's watching. You want to play house, fine, but don't tank this company. I'm still CO, Mark growled. Back off. Then prove it. Victor shot back, eyes glinting. Singapore's final meeting is Friday, same time as Zoe's art showcase. You can't be in 2 places. Choose. The ultimatum was a trap. That night, Mark sat in Zoe's room, watching her sleep, her latest drawings scattered like confessions. One showed a blue house, Zoe outside, labeled waiting for daddy. Another had them holding hands, but Mark's figure was half-drawn, as if Zoe doubted he'd stay. The sight shattered him, when his daughter started losing faith in him. But there was a secret Mark didn't know, one that would break him open. Anna, dropping Zoe off at school, had overheard her talking to a friend. My daddy's chair's my best friend, Zoe whispered, voice small. It's always there when he's not. Anna hadn't told Mark, fearing it would crush him. Instead, she'd slipped another drawing into his briefcase that morning, one Zoe had hidden under her bed, a blue chair with Zoe's tiny hand reaching for it. Labeled, Please Come Home, Daddy. Mark found it Thursday night, after a brutal day of negotiations. The drawing was a dagger, his plea raw and desperate. He called Anna, voice shaking. Why didn't you tell me she's this sad? I thought you'd see it, Anna said, voice breaking. She's trying so hard to reach you. He hung up, staring at the drawing. The Singapore deal was his legacy, but Zoe was his heart. What kind of father let his daughter befriend a chair? The question was a storm, raging inside him, but there was another layer, darker and more insidious. Victor wasn't just pushing for the deal, he was plotting a coup. Late Thursday, Mark's assistant Lila slipped him an email she'd intercepted. Victor to a board member, suggesting Mark was unstable and proposing himself as interim CEO. The betrayal was a gut punch, but not a shock. Victor had always coveted the throne. Mark's absence at the Singapore meeting would be Victor's chance to strike. There was more. Lila revealed a rumor. Victor had been meeting secretly with rival firm, Nexus Corp, feeding them Emerson Tech of proprietary data to weaken Mark's position. The stakes weren't just Zoe. They were Mark's entire empire. But there was another twist, one Lila had uncovered in Victor's emails, a cryptic reference to a personal file Victor held, something from Mark's past that could bury him. What was it? Mark's mind raced, sifting through his history. His early days at Emerson Tech had been scrappy, sometimes ruthless. Had he crossed a line Victor could exploit? Mark confronted Lila after hours, his office dim. What's this file? He demanded. Lila hesitated, eyes darting. I don't know specifics, she said. But Victor's been digging into your old deals from before Claire passed. Something about a patent dispute. He's got leverage, Mark. The patent dispute. A decade ago, Mark had outmaneuvered a competitor, securing a critical patent for Emerson Tech's core algorithm. The deal was legal but sharp-elbowed, and the rival CEO had sworn revenge. Had Victor found proof of something unethical? Mark's stomach churned. If exposed, it could ruin him, not just as CEO, but as Zoe's father. Friday dawned, a day of reckoning. In the boardroom, the Singapore team's faces filled the video screen, their voices sharp with final demands. Victor sat at Mark's right, smirking as if he'd already won. Mark's phone buzzed Anna, sending a photo of Zoe in a glittery dress, standing by her art display at school. Her smile was brave, but her eyes searched for him, pleading. Mark's heart thundered. He thought of Claire's laughter, Ruby's son, Zoe's blue chair. Then, mid-presentation, he stood, chair scraping like a gunshot. I'm done, he said, voice iron. I have to go. Victor's face contorted. You're throwing away $2 billion? For what? My daughter, Mark said, striding out. She's waiting. He sped to Zoe's school, the city a blur of steel and light. The auditorium buzzed with parents and kids, but Zoe's face lit up when she saw him, her run to him a collision of love. You came, she cried, hugging him tight. Mark knelt, tears burning, vowing never to choose a chair over her again. The fallout was a firestorm. Victor spun Mark's exit as a breakdown, rallying the board with whispers of a coup. He's lost it, he told them, eyeing Mark's chair. Mark knew he was on borrowed time. But Lila uncovered proof of Victor's betrayal. Encrypted emails showing he'd leaked proprietary code to Nexus Corp, along with draft press release hinting at the personal file to discredit Mark. The file Lila discovered was a forged document alleging Mark had bribed a patent official years ago. A lie, but convincing one. Mark faced a choice: expose Victor and risk the scandal tainting Emerson Tech, or fight another way. He chose Zoe's way, truth, but not vengeance. At the next board meeting, he didn't just defend himself. He rewrote the future. Holding Zoe's first drawing, he faced the board. This is what happens when we forget why we work. He said, I built this company for my family, but I lost my daughter to a chair. We all lose something when we live like this. I'm proposing a new vision, human-centered leadership, flexible hours, mental health support, real balance. Stronger people build stronger companies. Silence gripped the room. Then Sarah, a board member, spoke. My kids barely know me, she said. If this is Emerson Tech's future, I'm in. Others nodded, the tide turning. Victor's smirk faded, his coup crumbling. But Victor struck back. A week later, a tech blog ran a hit piece, claiming Mark was spiraling and hinting at the patent scandal. The stock dipped and the board wavered. Mark learned Victor was behind it, using the forged document to fuel the smear. The betrayal was personal now, but Mark refused to play dirty. He called an all-hands meeting, projecting Zoe's drawings on the screen. This is my why, he said. I failed my daughter, but I won't fail you. We're building a company that values people over profits, because that's what lasts. Employees cheered, inspired. Lila handed Mark a USB drive. Victor's emails, ready to be leaked. But Mark shook his head. We don't win by sinking to his level, he said. Instead, he sent the evidence to the board privately, forcing Victor's resignation without a public circus. The patent scandal was debunked quietly, with Mark's transparency winning back the board's trust. The stock rebounded, and the Singapore deal closed, driven by a team empowered to thrive. But there was one final twist. Months later, Mark received an anonymous letter, postmarked from a small town. Inside was a note in unfamiliar handwriting. You did right by her. Claire would be proud. Tucked inside was a faded photo of Claire, laughing with Zoe as a toddler, a moment Mark had never seen. His throat tightened. Who sent it? Ruby? Anna? Someone from his past? The mystery lingered, but the photo became a talisman, a reminder of what mattered. 2 years later, Mark and Zoe sat in their art room, paint smudging their hands. Her latest drawing hung on the wall. Daddy and me, not Daddy's chair. The blue chair was a faint ghost, no longer the star. Zoe laughed, flicking paint at him, and Mark caught her in a hug. The moment worth more than any empire. Reader, what's your empty chair? What's pulling you from the ones who need you most? Like this story if it shook you. Subscribe for more of that cut deep. Life's too short to let love wait. For years on, Emerson Tech was a global beacon. Its human-first model a case study in boardrooms worldwide. Mark, once chained a legacy, now measures success in Zoe's bedtime stories, sloppy pancakes, and finger-painted walls. At her next art show, Zoe's drawing was of them under a rainbow, no chairs in sight. Sarah, now so old, stood beside Mark, her own kids cheering the crowd. Mark held Zoe's hand, the anonymous photo tucked in his pocket. He'd chosen right. The empire could wait. His daughter couldn't. And in her smile, he found the only legacy that mattered.